New evidence tonight that the government is not properly prepared for the Calais refugee children. ITV News has a leaked email showing the Home Office urgently needs more staff to deal with them once they get here.
Also on the programme, what Theresa May really knew about problems with the child sex inquiry.
British forces bomb targets in Mosul as part of the battle to drive out Islamic State.
And do we have a problem? The anxious wait for news from the European mission to Mars.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The Home Office is so badly prepared for the refugee children being brought over from Calais, it's calling upon charities for help. In an email seen by ITV News, officials admit there are not enough qualified staff to help resettle the children and says it needs urgent support.
It comes as the government rejected controversial calls for dental checks on the refugees following concerns that some appear to be much older than 18. More arrived in Britain today ahead of the expected demolition of the camp known as the Jungle. Here's our national editor, Allegra Stratton.
For these children, the start of a new life, but their arrival is the start of recriminations in the UK too. Can the government be sure these children are really children? One Tory MP is leading the call for tests.
The main one is a dental check on teeth, but also there's an X-ray on the wrist that can be done as well to check bone density. So either of those two tests will give a fairly accurate assessment of people's ages.
Today, the government ruled out dental X-ray tests as too intrusive and inexact. But even the families of the refugees accept there's a problem. This is the moment on Monday when Jan was reunited with his 16-year-old nephew, Harris. He'd been in the Calais jungle for 4 months. It's an experience, his uncle says, that aged him. Here they are in the family pizzeria 2 days later.
Children in Afghanistan and children in UK is totally different. All night, all day, 24 hours in their mind is that it's gonna bomb, it's gonna come, explode our home, we're gonna die, we're gonna be killed. If your son or if your daughter is in that kind of circumstances for 10 years or for 5 years, you think their age will be look like the same? No.
The transfer of the Calais children has already been slow, but today it's clear the authorities can't cope alone. ITV News has obtained an email sent from the people inside this building, the Home Office, to charities asking for urgent help. The Home Office has had months to deal with this. Now, they're treating it like a last-minute crisis. The email says, we are arranging accommodation and support for the children arriving in the UK, but at least some of these providers will not have experience of delivering residential care. So we're trying to identify organisations to release staff, perhaps on a voluntary basis. The race to find the children at the Calais camp continues, but there are new questions tonight about whether we're even ready for them when they get here.
Well, talking of questions, there were questions about whether they were being selected correctly, and now questions about what they're going to do with them when they get here. It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they may be panicking right now. I mean, this email calls for urgent help. That's a direct quote. And then it suggests unless they get that help, these children will go to providers who are not experts in looking after that sort of child. And indeed, it then goes on to suggest they'd like them to be volunteers, not paid. This isn't the local church trying to help the children of Calais. This is the official response from the UK government. My sense, what's happened is that they didn't think the French would demolish the camp as quickly as they have done. They've been caught on the hop, essentially. They are now having to rush, and when you rush, you make some mistakes.
So what happens next?
I think well, we're having this slow drip. We've had 10 children today, or thereabouts, 10 yesterday, and we'll keep having them until there's around 300. The Home Office has said that's how many we'll probably take.
OK, Allegra, thank you.
Prime Minister Theresa May admitted today she had been aware of stories about the former chairwoman of the troubled inquiry into historical child sex abuse. After Dame Lowell Goddard quit in August, serious allegations emerged about her conduct. Mrs May said she had known about the concerns whilst Home Secretary but could not intervene. Our Deputy Political Editor Chris Shipp is in Westminster tonight. And Chris, is the Prime Minister in some degree of difficulty over this?
Well, Mark, I'd say she's in difficulty to the extent that Downing Street doesn't appear to have been very forthcoming in the information about what it was Theresa May knew and when she knew that the child sex abuse inquiry was in trouble. Now, as you mentioned, when Dame Laura Goddard resigned in August, she became the third chairman to have quit her job as head of this inquiry. Now, the Home Office says that it only found out on July the 29th that there were concerns about her competence. Now, crucially, at that stage, Theresa May was already Prime Minister. But what's emerged today is that when she was still Home Secretary, she did know that there were some problems. And this is what Mrs May said in the Commons earlier during Prime Minister's questions when she was asked about this matter.
Too many people have had concerns that people in positions of power have intervened to stop them from getting justice. There were stories around about the inquiry and about individuals related to the inquiry, but the Home Secretary cannot intervene on the basis of suspicion, rumour or hearsay.
Now, when Theresa May said their stories, Downing Street later clarified that she was aware of tensions when she was Home Secretary. But the issue here really is what she knew and when she knew it. There's no suggestion that she did anything wrong. In fact, the Prime Minister insists she couldn't have acted because there was no formal complaint. But the way in which this information has been sort of dragged out of Downing Street doesn't sit well with her image she likes to create of being a straight-talking politician.
Chris, thanks very much. Chris Ship there.
British jets and drones have bombed targets in Mosul as part of the battle to drive so-called Islamic State out of the city. The Ministry of Defence today released this footage of an IS truck bomb being destroyed in an airstrike carried out by an RAF drone.
And as Iraqi forces close in, thousands of refugees are already fleeing the area, raising concerns of a pending humanitarian crisis. From the front line, our senior international correspondent John Irvine reports on the battle for Mosul.
As the black flag of IS is torn down a village at a time, the white flag of peace is raised by liberated locals as they welcome the Iraqi army. We were with one unit as they crossed the Nineveh plain heading towards Mosul. The assault force often has to make its own way over land because many proper roads are laced with landmines. Booby traps are all over the place. Well-trained Iraqi sappers are some of the busiest soldiers out here. So far, this has been a three-pronged offensive, and there have been battles on all fronts. Any hope that the Iraqi army might benefit from a meek IS retreat towards Mosul has been dispelled by the fanatics' determination and ruthlessness. Today we joined the Iraqi general in charge on one front as he toured a newly liberated village. The residents looked shell-shocked, but relieved they'd come through. Overnight, Islamic State fighters mounted a heavy counterattack. Today, they claim to have retaken this village. That's one of the reasons the Iraqi army have brought us here, to show that that is not the case.
Yeah, I shaved it. Yeah, good beard.
Noting that the villagers were clean-shaven, the general headed to the barbers, where he found a box full of the beards IS had forced men to grow. While some villages here are deserted, others are fully populated by citizens who've been captive in their own homes for more than 2 years. These people are Sunni Muslims. The soldiers freeing them are Shia. Normally, they have no love for one another. But for the time being, tensions between the two sects have been set aside, while their common enemy, the Islamic State, is dealt with, one village at a time. John Irvine, ITV News, Northern Iraq.
Here, pressure mounted further on Sir Philip Green today, with the former pensions minister saying he could end up paying hundreds of millions of pounds to rescue the BHS pension fund. It followed this exclusive interview with ITV News in which Sir Philip pledged to save it. Well, tomorrow MPs will discuss whether or not he should be stripped of his knighthood. And watching intently will be many angry former BHS workers. Our consumer editor Chris Choi spoke to some of them.
This is the awful mess that is BHS. Now those who worked in these stores are determined to have their say as MPs make crucial decisions. Parliament will debate whether Philip Green should lose the knighthood he was given in 2006 for services to retail.
It was an amazing place to work and the people made that, and I love my job.
Anne McNabb worked at BHS from age 16. She managed this store in Huddersfield for Sir Philip Green.
You know, to get back at him the way I'm hurting at the moment, yes, strip him of it, but it's not going to bring back BHS.
Today MPs discuss the BHS pension. It has a £571 million deficit. Sir Philip Green says he'll fix it.
Just seeing that iconic brand just looking so sad.
In Hartlepool, I'm meeting a former BHS manager with 35 years service and pension payments.
I joined the pension scheme as a little 16-year-old back in 1981, and you know, you were given advice of join the pension scheme, it will look after you in later years. And unfortunately, the way that it stands at the moment, there is so much uncertainty as what is going to happen to our pensions at the moment.
Sir Philip Green is now hoping his apology will carry weight.
I want to start with you by saying, you know, how sad and very, very, very sorry I am for all the hardship and sort of sadness caused.
I started off as a Christmas temp around November time, worked there, I did a 5-year service there, ended up becoming a manager.
And Adam hasn't had a job since his BHS branch in Leeds closed.
He apologised, fair enough, but it wasn't a sincere one, you know, it didn't come from the heart, and if he meant it, we still won't be waiting 4 months down the line for him to finally conclude if he's paying the pot or not.
All that's left is the rubble of this failed business. As the man who once ran it comes in for ever tighter scrutiny, many workers believe his reputation lies in these ruins. Chris Choi, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News.
That's not my daddy.
The movie that captures the real-life story of one man and his struggle with sepsis.
Overnight, I became a quadruple amputee and had my face removed.
An extraordinary and ultimately uplifting story, and more of the day's news, all after the break.
Welcome back. Now, as stories of survival go, few are more inspirational than that of Tom Ray. After a visit to the dentist, he was suddenly struck down by the blood infection sepsis. He survived, but at a terrible cost, losing his arms, legs and much of his face. It left him feeling and appearing like a stranger to his own young family. Their painful journey to rebuild their lives together has now been turned into a powerful new film. And as Tom and his wife Nick told me, they hope it will raise awareness of the condition. It is a stark insight into the damage sepsis can do to a human being. Tom Ray's life has been destroyed by it. His wife and young family, once so optimistic and happy, suddenly plunged into darkness.
Overnight, I became a quadruple amputee and had my face removed, lost my house, lost our business, and spent many years trying to recover.
Now his story is told in a powerful film.
That's not my daddy.
How a simple nick on his gum at the dentist turned to sepsis. How doctors failed to spot the signals and his wife had to authorise amputations, and how it pushed them both to the very brink. And did you consider taking your own life?
Yes, frequently in the first few months. More from the point of view of me feeling that I was too much of a burden.
His wife Nick, played by Joanne Froggatt in the film, admits she nearly walked away, but she stayed and pulled Tom through.
You kind of push your own demons to the back and cope, but eventually it kind of overwhelms
knew as well. So I think between the two of us, we had our own dips, you know, slightly out of sync with each other, but you know, it affected both of us in the same way.
They told me the film captured their suffering and their anguish, but most importantly, it spreads the word about sepsis.
Being able to spread awareness is very important to us. What we're hoping is that we really can save lives.
You know, if they do get the nick in the gum like Tom did, just do something about it, go and get some antibiotics, and that we can just ram the numbers right down.
Ultimately, it is a story of triumph over adversity, but it also serves as a powerful wake-up call about a condition that needlessly kills far too many. And you can find much more information on sepsis, including how to spot the crucial telltale signs. That's on our website, itv.com/news.
2 inmates at a prison in London have been arrested after another prisoner was stabbed to death. The victim has been named as Jamal Mahmood, who was 21 years old. 2 other inmates are in a critical condition in hospital after the attack at Pentonville Prison yesterday afternoon.
The number of people out of work in the UK has risen for the first time this year. Figures show the jobless total rose by 10,000 in the last 3 months, but there are still record numbers of people in employment.
And the DJ, Tony Blackburn, is set to return to Radio 2 next year, 8 months after being sacked over evidence he gave to an investigation into sexual abuse at the BBC. He says he can't wait to get back behind the mic again.
There's an anxious wait for scientists at the European Space Agency tonight over the fate of its latest Mars probe. They know the Schiaparelli lander is on the red planet's surface. They just don't know yet whether it survived intact.
But if they have been successful, the robot could help reveal whether there is indeed life on the red planet, as our science correspondent Alok Jha explains.
Waiting for a signal from the surface of the red planet. The European Space Agency's Schiaparelli lander should have phoned home by now, a signal that should have been detected by astronomers at a telescope in Pune in India. But so far, nothing.
We cannot jump on conclusion, definitely. We should wait for the Mars Express data. Maybe the colleagues in Pune as well might find something in the data they've recorded. Detecting such a very weak signal in this ocean of noise, if you want, the radio signal noise that we have, is very, very difficult. So we shouldn't jump on conclusions, definitely.
Earlier this afternoon, the Schiaparelli robot was deployed to the red planet's surface. There it'll record images and take scientific measurements of what it finds. But its main purpose is to test technology for a mission in 2020, where a rover will drill into the planet's surface to search for signs of life. Engineers in the UK helped to design and build the Schiaparelli lander, and now they're also working on the rover.
There are a couple of rovers already on the planet, and you can say that we've sent the chemist and the geologist, and this one will be the biologist. So it's going to be looking at signs that there has ever been life, so life markers, but also possibly signs of current life. And we're talking tiny life, we're talking bacteria and microbes, but we've recently found water evidence on Mars, so there could be life on Mars.
And today's landing on this planet, whether successful or not, will help to answer that question of life. Alok Jha, ITV News.
And finally tonight, a boundary pushing of a more earthly nature. For any 85-year-old, competing a marathon is some achievement.
But Surrey-born Ed Whitlock didn't just finish the race over in Toronto, he smashed the world record for his age group, as Martha Fairley reports.
It's a pace many runners half his age would be envious of, and a distance most 85-year-olds wouldn't even attempt. Not only did long-distance runner Ed Whitlock finish the Toronto Marathon, he did it in 3 hours, 56 minutes and 38 seconds.
Well, I like racing and setting world records, but I find training is a bit of a drudge.
When he crossed the line on Sunday, Ed set a new world record for 85 to 90-year-olds, shattering the previous record by more than 35 minutes.
Go, Ed, go!
But the ageing athlete doesn't see what all the fuss is about.
Well, yes, but I've done that before. I don't think it's one of my best world record.
His time of 2 hours 54, set when he was 73, still hasn't been beaten, and he's broken more than 30 records.
Hope to set the 90-year-old record. Hopefully I'll still be running then and can attempt them.
And while his training route through a cemetery may be unconventional, Ed Whitlock's still got plenty of miles ahead of him. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Unbelievable.
Plenty of hair as well. Good head of hair.
Fantastic. That is all for now. Julie Etchingham's here with news at 10.
But from all of us, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.